Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, today got a fun and exciting bonus video for you guys today, and that is because we are playing Paprium. We are playing it on MiSTer FPGA with a new core that's going to allow for the full soundtrack to play in the background, versus where we had it before where we just had the sound effects and no music. And that is because there is a quote-unquote special chip in a Paprium cart, the MiSTer, that basically would be able to ingest that audio from the files, then play it back during gameplay. And that's something that's never been reverse engineered because it is protected, so this core is a pivot on that to allow all this music to come through, but as closely to an actual Paprium cartridge as you can possibly get. And I was one of the rare few people that actually received a full version of Paprium after ordering it, but I highly assume that's because I had a YouTube channel, because I know a couple other YouTubers that ordered it also got their copies as well, where a ton of other people didn't. And honestly, Paprium always leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, but remember, we didn't make the game, we're just talking about it here. And this is done by a dude in the UK, Pez82, and honestly, he's my third favorite member of the UK contingent, right behind Jeremy Clarkson and Pixel Cherry Ninja. All jokes aside, I only get to talk to 2 of the 3 of them, but if Jeremy Clarkson is listening, I would love to talk to you as well. But that obviously is a joke, just a big Top Gear fan, a big Grand Tour fan, and now Clarkson's Farm, definitely some essential watching, at least in my opinion. But honestly, Paprium has such a weird track record. It is a fun game, but it is not the amazing end-all be-all beat-em up that it was hyped up to be. Honestly, it's a very pretty game with an amazing soundtrack and a lot of fun sound effects, but the gameplay can be a little bit buggy even on a cartridge, and honestly kind of always felt like it wasn't 100% finished. But now Pez82 came along and basically pivoted up the Mega Drive core to allow for this thing to actually be able to stream in the WAV files in real time. Now those WAV files could actually change pitch on a cartridge, and that's not something that's going to be working here, but if you've never actually played a Paprium cart, I'm assuming 99 out of 100 of you never have, you really wouldn't know the difference. And because Fonzie basically disappeared with $1 million of people's money to go buy a house somewhere in France apparently, at least that's the story I have heard, being able to play this game as close to the actual cart as possible for everyone out there that invested money with Watermelon Games and never saw a return on it, it is definitely a good thing for the community. If I'm being honest, Paprium is a game worth playing. No, it doesn't deliver on the promise of being the best beat-em-up game ever made, and no, it never delivered on the promise of Fonzie and Watermelon taking money and then not actually shipping people anything. If you see that little bit of a visual glitch there where the sprites go missing, I have an original capture from my original cart on the channel as well, and this area definitely has a lot of visual glitches and bugs on real hardware, kind of just pointing to the fact this definitely doesn't feel like a finished game. But now it's about as good as you're possibly going to get on FPGA hardware thanks to Pez82. And just so you know, because I like to be upfront with everyone, and he was on the GitHub repo, he just go to the ever-loving hell out of this thing on Quad and left a message saying it's just for people to think if they could do better, definitely do it, because he'd love to have a perfect Paprium. And in this instance, getting a game that disappeared with $1 million worth of people's money working on MiSTer FPGA, honestly, personally, I don't really care how people do it. This should be enjoyed by everyone, because obviously Fonzie took off with that bag of cash, and he's probably never going to be seen again. People like to compare him to Alejandro, but honestly, Alejandro had charm. Fonzie, there is zero charm in that man, just absolutely from start to finish, a big epic piece of retro gaming crap. But being able to play this here, you can see where Paprium had some fun ideas, and honestly, a big old busty robot that flies around is a fun vibe. So definitely go into Paprium and think to yourself, I want to experience the game, I want to play it. If you want to play it on FPGA hardware, you're going to be able to do that now with the actual audio involved. It is not yet perfect audio, I'm sure it will improve, but before you're playing this game without a soundtrack whatsoever, that wasn't just very fun. And it's again one of those things, because of the MiSTer hardware in the actual cartridge, it might be honestly impossible to be able to one-to-one replicate it unless someone's finally able to fully reverse engineer that hardware. But again, it is protected silicon, so it's one of those things that actually makes it very difficult to go ahead and understand 100% of what that chip does and be able to replicate it in emulation or in FPGA code. So if this is as far as we ever get, it is still an improvement for a game that disappeared with a lot of money and a lot of people got burnt on. But speaking of audio, here it is. So the audio isn't perfect, but it's a damn sight better than we had before, and PES 82 made that happen. And just so you know, all of the music underlying the gameplay that isn't in the soundtrack sample, I actually subbed that in for the actual WAV file that would come along with Paprium. That's just because there was a little bit of static in some of the captures, and I find that to be slightly annoying underneath a voiceover. So when you hear the soundtrack sample, that is game audio being played. When you hear the other music in this video, that is me actually doing it in post, just so you guys have a better overall experience of watching the video. But if you know me and you know the channel, I am always advocating for, and honestly probably harping about, video game preservation, because emulation is preservation, FPGA is preservation, and in the instance of Paprium, preserving this game is important because 1, a lot of people paid a lot of money and never actually got to experience it, and 2, there have been some x-rays of the actual PCB showing voiding behind some of the ball grid array solder joints. So it's one of those things, these cartridges all completely stop working maybe in 5, 10, 20 years. Not to put the scare into people out there, but it was not manufactured perfectly. So if this game didn't emulate, if it didn't work on flashcards, if it didn't work on MiSTer FPGA, then there might be a universe in which Paprium just became lost media. And that is definitely something I don't want to see on the channel. But as far as the visuals here, running Paprium on FPGA, it looks exactly like it does on real hardware, and honestly with the clean HDMI out, the colors are even more saturated and prettier than you get on an RGB system. Usually I capture this on my Sega CDX, and while it looks really good, the HDMI just makes it look better, because I will say the art department of Watermelon did an absolutely amazing job of making the world of Paprium really feel like a living, breathing, kind of Neo-Tokyo cyberpunk aesthetic world, and it comes across on the screen absolutely flawlessly. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me, have you ever played Paprium before, and did you order a copy of the cartridge, and if so, did you get it or did you not? I absolutely am glad that I got my copy just so I could do videos on how much of a mess the entire situation was, but I still feel bad that I was one of the people that got a copy, or I know a lot of people out there that didn't have YouTube channels weren't able to get a copy for themselves. Now the footage you're watching here in this layer priority issue where you're actually in the background, I've never seen that happen on the Sega Genesis version of the game, but it can be incredibly buggy, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is something that technically could happen. But this is a game that you're going to be able to play from start to finish, and you're going to be able to play with audio now, and that's something that was never able to be done before. So I left the GitHub link in the description to PES 82's repo on this one, where he gives you explicit directions on how to set it up and where to put the files. Just make sure you pay attention to every bit of that, and make sure you have the most updated MiSTer main so that audio will stream in. If you get a situation where you're not getting the music playing, that's probably because your MiSTer FPGA hasn't been updated in a while, so keep that in mind. But if you follow all the directions, you'll be able to play Paprium about as close as it possibly can get to a Sega Genesis cartridge. I really don't know how many out there actually got shipped. I know it's a hell of a lot less than it was supposed to. But here's the next soundtrack sample. Go ahead and listen, and I'll be right back with just a little bit more info. So as of now, you get a better version of Paprium to play on your MiSTer FPGA, and absolutely everyone is a winner on that one. While I allow you guys to feel however you want, if somebody decides to use something like Cloud to be able to make a project like this, in this instance I really can't see any losers whatsoever, because Paprium is a game that absolutely turned into a scam, but it actually is a full game that a lot of people wanted to play and never actually got the chance to. So the more places this is available to play and as close to a native implementation as you would get if you own the cartridge, the better in my opinion. So definitely check this one out. If you have played around with it, leave me your comment down below. And it really is disappointing that the Watermelon game story ended with Paprium basically taking a bunch of money for nothing, because the developers actually made great games, the art team and all of the musicians made some great assets and some music, and Watermelon just basically finished this thing and given everyone a copy and sold more, they'd be probably making more games this day that would be really fun. But it is kind of a cautionary tale. Don't always believe everything you see on the internet. I don't think I need to tell anybody that at this point in time. And unfortunately, if you didn't get a copy of Paprium, I don't think it ever is coming. But having an FPGA core that makes a better playing experience on your MiSTer FPGA, that is definitely a win in my book, and I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it. So again, the GitHub repo link is in the description below. Just pay attention to the directions. If you skip around, you're just not going to get it to work. But short of that, we're done. I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.